Hey folks, how's it going? Jeff Antoniuk here. Welcome to video number 5 in the Advanced Jazz Learning Technique series. We're going to be talking about root motions. Some of you are seeing me live on Facebook right now. We do these videos live every time. I just like the idea of it being spontaneous and there not being the option to stop or redo it or whatever. So that's the format I like. These always get archived at our YouTube channel, which is Jeff Antoniuk Educator. So if you're seeing one of these videos for the first time, this is number 5, there's actually 30 other videos up on the YouTube channel, all having to do with jazz and learning and practice and how to get ahead with this great music. So hope you check that stuff out. So before we jump into the root motion stuff, which is a really great technique that's pretty important to me, I want to answer a question. I get this question often, and I think I had it about 5 or 6 times last week, as recently as last night. Why am I doing these videos and what is it that I'm trying to get out of them? Why am I not charging? Why aren't the PDFs, by the way, there's a PDF that goes with these videos. Send me an email, I'll send it to you. Why am I not charging for the handouts? All that kind of stuff. And people are sort of wondering about that. And so I have a couple strong answers for that. This is definitely something that's very thought out. These videos in this series are made for teachers, although of course players are getting plenty of information here. But for people like me who are jazz professionals, jazz players, jazz teachers around the country, I want to get your attention. That's why I'm doing this for free. I would love to have a personal conversation, like a real, like not internet conversation, like two-way conversation via email or phone or whatever. What I want to talk to you about is the kind of teaching that I do. Now, I've taught at colleges, I've taught at universities, I've taught grad students, I've been an artist in residence for a public school system. I've kind of done the whole shebang over the last 30 years. And I've chosen to work with adults. I've quit all those other jobs. I've chosen to work with adults, not been forced to work with adults. This is what I really enjoy doing. And I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of my peers around the country who are teaching. Nobody does what I do. That doesn't mean what I do is, anything special, except for it is a little bit. Working with adult students. This market is so radically underserved. So frankly, what I do is I have adult students. These are folks who are playing on the side, people who live there, make their living outside of music, and I assemble them in jazz small groups. I coach these small groups, and these people love it. I get told regularly how this has changed their lives. This adds meaning to their lives. So there is so much room around the country for other people to be doing this kind of work. I literally, every week, several times a week, I get emails from Atlanta or from San Diego or my hometown of Edmonton, Alberta, with adult musicians who don't have a place to play. And they're wondering if there's anything like what I do here in Washington, D.C. in these other regions. And it drives me crazy. I have waiting lists in other towns, and there's only one of me. I'm not going to open a location in Atlanta, so that's why I'm doing these videos. I want to get the attention of teachers and let you know there are other ways to do this. There are other things to do aside from the standard 1 or 2 types of gigs or 1 or 2 types of teaching. And it's amazing work. I love doing it. The other thing I'd say is musicians are terrible at business. That's not the muscle that a lot of us were born with, right? So we just can't see how to get from here to there. If you sit with musicians for more than 2 minutes, inevitably somebody brings up, oh man, the gigs have all gone away, or such and such just closed, or my car just broke down and now what am I going to do because I don't have the $400 to fix it. It's terrible. It's disheartening and it's saddening to see the level and the intelligence and the drive of these people and how just making ends meet, just living an interesting artistic life is such a challenge. And what I'm saying is there are other ways to do it. I'd love to talk to you about it. It's wonderful, fulfilling work. And so that's why I'm doing this video series, is to get some good jazz information out there, of course, but also to start some conversations with teachers around the country. I've got students waiting for you guys in your cities. Get in contact with me, jeffantoniuk@gmail.com. And by the way, just finished training today, his last session today, with Russ Nolan, who is opening a business like this in New York City, jazzlabny.com. And so now the people that have been getting in touch with me from New York have a place to go. All right, let's talk about root motions. So I think like good art, good architecture, good design, very often we'll see an element that gets reused and moved around. And so I think that's a hallmark of many types of art. If you look or listen, you'll hear that kind of thing. So I think that's an important thing for us to be practicing. So root motions. This also relates a little bit to one of the previous videos we did, how versus what. I think that was video number 1 in this series. And so we're actually going to dig into that how versus what today. This is sort of a deeper version of that video. So the how part, how we practice things, and the what part, what are we playing? So let's keep this simple. Let me give you some examples. So one of the first classic jazz patterns I ever learned was a pattern that's 1, 2, 3, 5. And I can't believe I just sung on the internet. That's some nasty, yikes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 5. There you go, that's better. All right, so that pattern, great classic pattern. I think that's from page 1 of the Patterns for Jazz book from like 1960, whatever it was. So that is what I'm going to practice. Now, it doesn't sound like much. It isn't much. It's a great little melodic, I think of them as bricks. It's like a little brick. And now I want to think about piling that brick up in interesting ways. A great architect can take a couple thousand bricks and pile them up into something amazing, right? And it has to do with recurring patterns very often. So a great root motion, a great pattern is, can you guess? Circle of fourths. Not the circle of fifths, the circle of fourths, progressing by a fourth. So most of us, I hope, have heard of the circle of fourths. If not, I've just changed your life for the better. Circle of fourths. So if I play that pattern around the circle of fourths, I'll play it on the saxophone. I'm in B flat concert, I'm in C. So I'll start in C, then I'll play in F, then go around the circle of fourths to B flat. So it's like those are my chord changes. So I just played that that pattern, that 1, 2, 3, 5, how? Around the circle of fourths. So it's that simple. Now that took a lot of doing, right? The whole point of this sort of root motion business, I think there's 3 things at least that we get from it, probably 30, but the 3 I'm thinking of are mental flexibility. So I can play 1, 2, 3, 5 in C. Those note names are C, D, E, G. Can I play it in F sharp? Can I play it in A flat? So that's going to take plenty of thinking. And, I've done this for decades now. So that mental flexibility, we have to be able to essentially transpose, right? There's a technical flexibility, that there are keys on the saxophone that are easier than others. And this will go for other instruments. Or you finger C one way, but you finger C sharp another way on the piano. So we have to work through a technical flexibility. And then I think, for me, there's this motivic self-referencing thing that goes on that starts approximating art, where we're taking an idea and moving it. We're taking this color and putting it over here as well. I've designed this window, so I'm going to use this window on this side of the building too. That's good design, right? Good architecture. So that's kind of the long and short of it. So now, simple ideas. Now, I want to say simple ideas. When we start applying these patterns, meaning root motions to them, they start getting kind of interesting. That first pattern. Didn't sound like much to begin with, but when I played it around the circle of fourths, it actually started sounding like a little something. I mixed up a little different pattern in there, a descending triad, but when we start alternating things, it gets very interesting. So how about this? What would you think is the next most important root motion in jazz? I would say the circle of fourths is. Now, we can go on and on. I'm trying to keep this to be a 10-minute video. This could be 5 hours easily. So let's just jump on. Half steps, I would say. We see half steps a lot in jazz progressions, especially when we see tritone substitutes. If you see descending half steps, you're probably looking at a tritone substitute. Another topic for another day. So, that pattern, I played now descending. I played it in C, I played it in B, I played it in B flat. That's an entirely different thing mentally and finger-wise. On the saxophone, going from C to F, they're similar notes, right? We're in a similar key signature. Going from C down to B or C up to C sharp, entirely different story. So wow, getting your head and your fingers together, this is good stuff. Okay, circle of fourths and half steps. So to my way of thinking, there's probably 9 different root motions. So we just did 2 of them. So we did half steps. I guess we could do whole steps, right? So I played 1, 2, 3, 5 up in whole steps. So over the years, I've gotten pretty good at what the root motions are. I do know the circle of whole steps, if you want to call it that. C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, or B flat, C. Now, full disclosure, that's only half the keys. So to get all the other half of the keys, that's 6 keys, you'd start and do it again in C sharp. So I'm going to move quickly through this stuff. The idea is these different root motions make that simple little brick seem different. I can pile up a brick flat and make a wall. I can pile up bricks to make an arch, right? You get the idea. This brick can be some amazing things. I like this pattern in minor thirds. So I'll play it in C, then E flat, then F sharp, etc. So that pattern in minor thirds, all of a sudden, wow, that sounded pretty different. Pretty cool. All right. How about tritones? And by the way, I use that lick a lot in many different settings. So that's another question of, wow, I've got this interesting architecture. What the heck do I do with it? It's another question, yeah. How about tritones? C and F sharp is a tritone. F sharp to C is a tritone. Kind of similar to a Stravinsky theme. So that simple little brick is starting to get pretty hip, right? So I mentioned 9 root motions. So let's start at the beginning. Half steps is one. Whole steps is another one. Minor thirds is another one. Major thirds, I haven't done that one. Major thirds. Circle of fourths. So one more time. Half steps, whole steps, minor thirds, major thirds, circle of fourths, tritones, circle of fifths. Got it? And now the intervals start repeating themselves if we go up from there. If we want to say augmented fifths, that's actually sort of similar to thirds. So that's why I would say there's 7 motions having to do with, you know, the intervals, right? So there's 2 other very important ones that get pretty interesting. One would be, what song are you playing? This is where this actually becomes music. So far, this is piling up bricks. This is a very intellectual, synthetic kind of exercise, but it gets me to some cool places. And like I said, mental flexibility, finger flexibility. So how about John Coltrane's Giant Steps? And if you look at his transcription, you'll see him doing this exact pattern, 1, 2, 3, 5. I haven't counted it up. I'd be willing to say 100 times in that famous solo. Did I mess up there? I may have. But you get what I was doing. Every chord change, I played 1, 2, 3, 5 on the next chord change. I played it in major. Then when it was a minor chord, I played 1, 2, flat 3, 5. So we can change that, the brick, to sort of fit a little bit. But so, I'd say that's the 8th pattern, is songs, because this makes it more music. So an interesting one would be random chord changes. That's hard to do. Like if I were going to try to say 10 random words in a row, I don't think I could. I'd start looking around the room for words to say. It's so hard to be random. To make a computer generate random numbers was sort of a tricky thing to do early on. So let's take another simple brick. Here's a really simple brick. 1 flat 7. So I just did that around the circle of fourths. 1 flat 7. How about if I do it up in minor thirds? Okay, a diminished pattern. So you can see just a simple brick and any one of these root motions. Now some are hipper than others. You'll like this one, I won't. I'll like that one. I don't like this one ascending, but it's kind of hip descending. So this is a laboratory for us to experiment in. So how about if I do that 1 flat 7 with a random root motion? It's hard to do. It's hard to do. And we can actually start making music like that. So strict limitations. So this exercise has a lot to do with limitations, which I'm a big fan of. So I've kind of run through a quick version of what to do. The what is anything you're practicing. It could be a longer lick. So that was a 1 measure long lick I took from Coltrane, and that was through the circle of fourths. I'll tell you right now, the shorter the brick, the more you can build with it. So that's a quick, short little brick, 1 flat 7, a whole step, right? That fits in a lot of places. You can be quick with that. If your brick is 4 inches long, it's almost unlimited. You could make a nice, very smooth arch with that kind of brick. How about if your brick is 15 feet long? Can't make a 14-foot wall, right? You're super limited. So the longer the lick, the less the root motion is helpful. It doesn't add value in a sense. The shorter the brick, the more the root motion turns it into something interesting. Okay, so that's really what I want to talk to you about. And this is such a valuable tool for getting the brain sorted out, for getting the fingers working, and for developing this ability to take an idea and move it around in space and in time, which I think is a big hallmark of many types of art from all cultures around the world. So this is something that's very valuable to practice. Like I said, it's kind of it's quite an intellectual thing. So this also goes back to the 50-50 playing video I did just recently, where this definitely is one of those intellectual side of the spectrum exercises. It's lots of the time I wasn't making music. I was doing things that were about music, but I'm right at the edge of using it for music. So if you listen to that video, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's very important work, but it's not the same as making music yet. It's setting us up for that. So I think it's great. The last little thing occurred to me as I was turning the camera on, that one of my favorite musicians, composers, saxophonist, Joe Henderson, seemed like he used this kind of thinking quite a bit. If you look at his compositions, any of his compositions from the Blue Note period, something like Inner Urge, where he'll take major 7th chords and go down a minor 3rd and up a half step and down a minor 3rd. You can see him experimenting with very obvious root motions. And I remember one of his rhythm changes solos. I can't even remember the album. It was a weird live thing in Europe, and it was with Arnett Cobb and some other tenor player. Anyway, it was like a blowing session thing that got recorded. And on rhythm changes, he played something like that. So over the 1-6-2-5, he played 1, up a minor 3rd, down a half step, down a half step, down a half step, down a whole step, down a whole step, down a half step. So Joe was toying with root motions. And by the way, everything he played was 1, 2, 3, 5, or a triad. Pretty hip. Can't get hipper than Joe Henderson. So, that's it. That's kind of the idea. So there's so much to be done with root motions. I would love to know if you have another take on it. You know, I didn't even know there were 9. I counted it up the other day getting ready to, thinking about what to do on this video. And so, yeah, it occurs to me there's 9 different root motions. So this could keep us busy forever doing this kind of work, right? So I hope this is helpful. Teachers, thank you for tuning in. Players, I hope that this gives you some ideas. And I guarantee a lot of your favorite modern players have really milked this approach. So thank you so much. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get a quick little notice every time we have a new video up. We're doing 1 a week. The YouTube channel is Jeff Antoniuk Educator. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you hanging out with me on this stuff, and see you again soon.